Teresa's sitting in that spot doing the record part. So thank you, Erica, for remembering, because I would not have.
Well, we are excited to be with you. Last month was a live Facebook, as several of our board members were at the IEA Global Conference, and so some great learning there. But we are back on the rhythm of third Wednesday of the month and 12 Eastern. So welcome to Midday Cafe. And we've got so many great things coming up. And so we just wanted to take some time today to kind of share with you what's coming up for the Great Lakes region. And so if you touch the Great Lakes in any way, or just connect with us online, you are welcome. So share out and invite people to this space. But we have coming up next month, we are so excited. Claire Lowridge, our board president, that's going to share with us a little later today, actually was on a roundtable panel called Christianity's Conflicted Relationship with the Enneagram. And so because that was a roundtable at the IEA Global, just for confidentiality, it's not recorded. And so she had the brilliant idea of going back to some colleagues that were a part of that and just saying, hey, could we do that live? And so next month, you want to make sure that you write down September 19th, 12 Eastern. We're going to be doing that panel live on Midday Cafe. So it's Christopher Hurtz, Liz Jackson, Jan Shigda, and Claire will be back with us to do that panel, Christianity's Conflicted Relationship with the Enneagram. So you're getting a piece of the IEA Global in a fresh way where you're invited to the table. So join us for that. So mark that on your calendar. And then in October, Leslie Hirschberger is going to be with us. And so Leslie is an IEA board member. She's a professional member of the IEA, and she also edits the 9 Points magazine. And so it's IEA9points.com. I'll post that link in the chat, but she is just a wonderful Enneagram professional. And so we're excited for that conversation. That'll be on October the 17th. And so a couple of different opportunities for you to engage live, because we love this online space, but we love face-to-face even more. But coming up, there's an actual local Enneagram workshop in South Central Illinois, and I can't miss announcing the town because they always make fun of me, but it's in Effingham, Illinois. The place does exist. September 15th. And that is actually going to be an Enneagram in your real life workshop. And so I'm helping to host that workshop with Teresa McCloy, one of our other board members that Claire mentioned earlier. So would love for you to be a part of that. The link is in the chat for that. And then also, if you're looking to use the Enneagram as a professional and want to get certified, Claire Lowridge is offering another Enneagram Harmony Triads Motions of the Soul Enneagram training and certification. Several of us on the call have been certified. It is beautiful work. You don't want to miss it. 4 days in historic Marshall, Michigan. So January 8th through the 11th. And so I'll post the link for that as well. Registration is open, and don't miss it. It's an awesome training and certification if you're looking to use the work even personally or in a professional space as well. And so I would just say also, there are ways that you can stay connected with us. And so certainly these calls, third Wednesday of the month, but we have a Facebook page, Enneagram Great Lakes. And so we'll be posting invitations and trainings. There's also a YouTube channel. And so if you received our newsletter, you have links to those, but we'll post them in the chat as well. But those are great ways that you can know what's going on in the Great Lakes region and stay connected with us. So anything else, Claire, before I turn it over to you?
I think we can get started.
All right.
And we're really grateful today that a couple of our friends who are in the gut triad have made it to join us. So let's hear it for the gut people. We love the gut people, right? So, all right, now you guys got to get, this is not one of those things where you can be quiet. You got to give a shout out for the gut people. Come on, unless you're at work and you get in trouble.
Yay!
All right. So we're starting, in addition to bringing some of the best teachers in the Enneagram to you, we're actually looking at doing some panel conversations, and we're beginning with the gut. And because of the fact that the Enneagram, we believe, is all about presence and awareness, we believe that all practices with the Enneagram begin in the body. So you not only have a body, but you are a body, and your body is your soul's address. And so when we think about the fact that your subconscious and your unconscious manifest in your body, and your body constantly signals what's going on in your heart and even in your mind. In fact, you may know this, but there are more neurons sending information up from the body than from the cognitive awareness down. So the vagus nerve actually sends up information from what some call the gut brain or the pelvic brain. And so this wonderful idea of beginning in the body, I think began with Riso Hudson, but the narrative tradition and Jerome Wagner's Enneagram Spectrum and many others also begin with the body. So we want to begin with these 8, 9, and 1 types, but I want to show you a diagram, and this is actually from my Harmony Triads training and certification, and Erica can put that up for you. So, sometimes people will say, well, I'm not going to get on that call because it's just about the gut, and I'm not a gut type. I'm a heart type, or I'm a head type. But what you'll see in this diagram that Erica will share is that every one of us have a connection when we're in harmony. When we're integrated, we actually have the ability to access all 3 centers of intelligence. The way that I talk about that is IQ, EQ, emotional intelligence, and GQ, gut intelligence. So you'll see that even with our 8, 9, and 1, all of us actually have a connection there. So 2s and 5s are connected to the 8, 1s and 4s and 7s are connected, and 3s, 6s, and 9s. And this little mantra that you'll see with each one of the types is actually a way to bring integration and wholeness. So while you're listening to the 8 today, the 2s and 5s might wonder if there's anything you've been dismissing or undernourishing in your own integrated self, because you have a body, right? And you have gut intelligence. When the 9 is speaking, the 3s and the 6s will want to pay attention and wonder if there is something there they might actually have undernourished or dismissed, or just not even known that you could have access. And in the same way, 4s and 7s today, pay attention to your 1. So that's good. That's good. Thanks for that, Erica. We're going to take a look also, as we're looking at 8s, 9s, and 1s, we're going to go right into the deep end, and we're going to talk about defense mechanisms. So every type has a defense mechanism. And we're going to look at 8s today first, and we're going to listen to this idea that 8's defense mechanism is denial. And so that is not a river in Egypt. It is denial is the defense mechanism for the 8. And when we think about even these gut types, each of them, they have a core motivation that they share, which is power and control. They have a negative fixation, which is anger and guilt, and the narrative that is always playing when they're not conscious, when they're not aware, when they're not practicing presence, is I've had enough, or I haven't done enough. So we're going to begin with the 8s and this idea of denial, which is the refusal to accept reality. Denial pretends that pain and weakness and feelings don't exist. And so if we go back to our gallery view, I just wonder how many of our 8s would give us a thumbs up and say that might be true. It could be true. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of 8s there. Look at the bravery.
Well, I actually was going to say that I don't think I have that.
Exactly.
Denial.
Right. That's right. That is right. And so I love the fact that when we can laugh at ourselves, we'll never cease to be amused. And right. And that we can actually do some really good work of becoming present when we're conscious. So I'm wondering if either of our 8s, I know that Kathleen and Shelley are willing to talk to us. I wonder if if either of you could talk about how in the heat of the moment, you might tend to ignore tender responses or vulnerability, denial.
Well, for an 8, one of the things 8s really have a need to do is avoid weakness, because and vulnerability, because vulnerability can show itself as weakness or be weakness in an 8's mind when they're not at their most resourceful self. And so we compensate with showing strength, which causes us to power up and can have the tendency to be overpowering and too intense. I don't know, Shelley, you want to add to that?
It's an interesting season for me, and I have a cold, so normally I don't have this voice. But
normally your voice is much stronger.
So sorry if I'm gravelly today, but for me, I'm finding that when I'm not connected to my 2 space, in that place of really learning how to love myself, because taking care of people sort of comes into the 8's play, but it's really that self-care that can be a gap for the 8. And when that isn't healthy for me, then that overreacting is just going to happen. So it's almost like the self-care and the self-awareness has to be the primary thing, or else the overreaction of the 8 is just out of control, that defensiveness. I don't know if does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that resonates for you, Kathleen, but it's really been something I would say I've just learned very, very recently in the last couple of years that has been, I've been connecting to that. And so then when I'm in a healthy space, at peace or in harmony or present to my 2, those overreactions don't happen, because I'm able to take a breath or walk away or calm down or say, let's have this conversation tomorrow. But outside of being connected to my 2 in that harmony sort of place, it's going to be a crapshoot of what happens.
Yeah. So let me ask you, when anger shows up, right? And
so anger is always there. Right. Anger doesn't show up. It's just, good morning, how are we today? For me. So I don't know, other 8s might be different, but it's always present. Always.
You're aware of it as an under rumble.
Always.
Yeah. Always. So when anger might manifest itself,
there we go,
as an opportunity to be expressed, right? What is it? How do you connect? How do you actually pause? And maybe you could give us an example of a recent time when you had the opportunity to express anger and you were able to practice harmony. And how did you do that? How did you center down? How did you access your 2 that you're talking about, Shelley?
I could give you more examples of when I don't do that well. One of the things I've done, and I'll show you this, is I came across this little necklace. It's a little feather. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those that came attached with some words. And so it was connected to this little placard that said fly. So it's a little feather. And it says, first, love yourself. Fly. First, love yourself. So I wear it really almost all the time. And I often just have to hold it to connect to my body, to actually be connected. Because even though we're in our gut, we're disconnected from what's happening in our gut. I think like all types, we don't do that. And so when I feel that response coming up, or I feel that overreaction happening with anger, a lot of times it's just taking a breath, and saying to someone who will want to have that conversation right now, like, you know what, I need to sit with this for a little bit. And so, yeah, this did happen this week, actually with my spouse, that I had to say, I can't have this conversation with you right now. I'm overtired. I'm stressed, and this isn't a good time to have this conversation. So let's take a break and not have this now, but come back to this in a couple of days or tomorrow when I can be more present to what needs to be said, not to what I just want to say.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I wonder, if that was first loving yourself.
For me, it is, because when I overreact, I don't like who I am. Then I'm like, oh, I hate that person that just is freaking out right now about this, or that. So often it's that regret of, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I react that way? Or, I don't want to be that person, but yet you find yourself in that space. So Kathleen, jump in, because I don't know, does that, resonate with you, or?
It does. And so you mentioned accessing your 2, and I think, so that's very healthy as well for me. And accessing my 5 is really helpful in just observing some of the times that I react rather than respond. And I try to do that without any judgment or condemnation, or, as you said, I hate when I become that, and because it's true. I would assume that's true for every number, but I try to come from a place of observation. Sometimes it's in the moment, and other times it's when I lay my head on the pillow and do my examen. And it really has helped me to learn to respond rather than react, and rather than, because our natural is to respond. And so I don't feel anger when I wake up every day, but it's easily accessible. I can access it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to learn that to understand things in a different way. So I had a situation last night where I said something, where this is true for a lot of 8s, where you can say something that seems intimidating or aggressive, and you don't even know it. And so I happened to do that last night, and to Sean, my husband, and he came right back at me with normally I would, if I felt threatened like that, not that he threatened me, but it would create this back and forth. But I paused and breathed, and I had to consider how what I said came out. And I realized that the way that it came out was not what I was intending, or how I was intending to respond or react. And so for me, just being an observer has really helped me a lot. And I feel like that's in my 5, being, trying to seek to understand.
Beautiful.
Do you find, Kathleen, for you as an 8, that it's easier to go to the 5 space than the 2 space?
For me, it is. It has been. My 2 has been my undernourished part of my life. But with learning the harmony triads, it's been very helpful, because it's an intentional going there.
Yeah.
And of course, the 2-5-8, that is the same with every model.
Yeah.
We're the same. We always go to 2-5-8, no matter what model, even not just motions of the soul, but so it's been a part of my connection all along, but learning to access them intentionally has been very helpful.
I liked that word you used about observing in the 5, because I think for many 8s, at least in my experience, that it's easy to go to 8s go to 5 fairly comfortably, and not to 2, but not always to the resourceful side of 5. in that observation of self. And I loved what you said there about that it's so easy to, we just say things and then wait a minute, how did that come out, or how could that be received, or how maybe did that other person in their type, how did they hear it, right? Because we're just like saying it. Yeah, those are, I like that word, those words.
Yeah, and so, you know, eights really are in touch with their anger, and as you say, you know, it's there, and it could come up in a heartbeat. But then right next door to you is the 9, and that same core motivation of power and control and negative fixation of anger and guilt are present for them. And I've had enough, and you know, or I haven't done enough is there. And wonder if our 9 can speak to how anger shows up for you, and and what does it look like? Because you don't typically look like angry people. These 9s, sometimes we wonder if you have a pulse. We have to check and see, are you alive in there? You know, is there a reaction? Is there a response? And so how does anger show up in the 9s? And if you could unmute yourself when you're going to speak.
Well, I find the 9s are perfect. So, for me, as a 9, when I pay some attention at all, I know that there's anger, kind of an underrumble of anger or frustration. It shows up for me mostly in stubbornness, I would say, or passive aggressive. The passive aggressive piece is both of those. If you package them properly, I suppose you can hide it so it doesn't look like anger. So yeah, I would say for me that's how it shows up. I think that's pretty common for 9s. Just those types of behaviors, passive aggressive. Narcissization is certainly a piece, but I would say that that's not so much about anger as it is just about checking out.
So yeah, so let's back that up for a minute. So the defense mechanism for the 9 is narcotization.
Right.
And so do you want to say a little bit about that, folks, that if they don't know that word narcotization, it means using food or drink or entertainment or repetitive patterns of thinking and doing to put oneself asleep, to numb out. So, you know, how does that show up with your anger? How do you put yourself to sleep?
Yeah, for me, the things that are listed aren't really the primary pieces of narcotization. I just separate myself from people. So the thing that becomes difficult about that, like I could even utilize to narcotize. I could even utilize behavior that seems productive. Go lose myself in yard work just to be away from people. So the narcotization is I just want to separate from people. So yeah, the difficulty with that is, you know, it can begin to look like it's almost a good spiritual practice to narcotize. It almost appears like when somebody says, let's practice some solitude and silence as a 9, that is always an invitation. That sounds great. But there's a difference between being present and aware in your solitude and silence and just kind of checking out or narcotizing. So I gotta always pay attention to the difference, because I can do the solitude and silence thing very easily, but it can just be a way to narcotize. So yeah. So awareness and intention becomes a really big thing, I think, for a 9, because we're very aware of everybody else, very aware of how everything's affecting everyone else, but not so good at being aware of how things are with us.
Yeah. So, is there a way, you're a body type. And so we're even saying that the body is the soul's address and that all of us have this body wisdom and you're connected to a 3 and a 6. And I just wonder, how aware are you of how, when stress or conflict come up, how aware are you of anger being connected to that?
Usually the problem is that I'm aware after it manifests in a way that I'm not really wanting it to manifest. I recently had a situation where just not a lot of margin going on in my life around some things. And then really a kind of a silly situation happened that normally wouldn't have been a problem to most people.
Like what? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, just something that happened around the house. There was a buildup with, for those of you that don't know, Claire's my wife, but a couple of our adult children had something happen at the house. I don't want to get into detail about it, honestly. But it was really a small thing. We had water leak around the house, and it was something that we had mentioned to them to pay close attention to while we were out of town. So normally that would be something that wouldn't bother me at all, but I just kind of spilled out, and looking back on it, it was just a lot of other frustration and anger going on internally that I wasn't processing well. So then a small thing, I can find myself all of a sudden just like a pressure cooker, just kind of blow. And the other thing, when I've talked to other 9s as well, I think one of the things that happens with us is we feel, talking about being a gut person, we feel like we're really being aggressive and forthright at times. When it's just not the case. When you ask for feedback, people are like, well, I didn't hear that or feel that from you. But internally, there's times where you feel like you're really confronting things and you're really not. So it's going on inside of you. So there's always this turmoil when it comes to, because, avoidance of conflict is such a common thing for a 9. So even moving and I find when it comes to conflict for a 9, our primary way to go to conflict is simply because we'll go to conflict just because it's the only way to get back to peace. It's not because we necessarily think that we want to have conflict or that it's going to resolve things, but we feel as though if we don't go through this, we're not going to get back to that peaceful place we want to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always think of one of your favorite songs. I got a peaceful, easy feeling. Yeah, and so how are you doing with accessing either your 3 or your 6, and what's that like for you, and how does it help regulate the anger?
Well, for me, it's easier I find myself that it's a little bit more challenging to go to 6 space than 3 for me. The helpful thing for the 3 becomes a lot of that energy that gets pent up becomes something productive. So that feels good. The 6 is a little bit harder, although I do find myself, I think, tapping into the loyalty piece of a 6 fairly easily. But just the process of kind of questioning of a 6, asking questions, especially when it comes to questions about myself.
Is that where stubbornness comes out?
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, even when thinking about your body, so is there somewhere in your body that you can locate your anger?
would say generally, probably right in my gut.
And how about for the eights? Where typically are you noticing your anger? Where does it first show up in your body?
Definitely in my body, in my gut, the core.
Yeah, same.
And what does that mean? What is it? Is it a pulsing? Is it a tightness, a constriction? What's that like?
Like a propeller to act. Like almost like you, like, there are times, and there are times when that's a really good thing too. But there are times when it doesn't serve me well. But yeah, it just propels me to act. That's what it feels like, a propeller.
Like a clenching in the gut.
Yeah. And Scott, do you have a way?
Describe it like a large balloon, and then kind of letting that air out of not exploding, but just letting it.
Yeah, I think even naming that is just a huge part of awareness, and allowing that kind of wisdom to just remind you that there are other resources you have in your IQ and in your EQ. Even just naming it as this is how it feels in the body can be a way to open up. And kind of wonder about our one here. I don't know if any of our ones would be willing to speak. Miss Wendy, you're a one. And, the defense mechanism for you is reaction formation. So if the eight's anger is expressed and the nine's anger is suppressed, we say that the one's anger is repressed, because it's not good to be angry. It's not good for, you to be angry. So I'm wondering, even this reaction formation definition here is the feeling of one thing and expressing the opposite to control your emotion. So even if you're angry, it's not good to be angry. So you actually, rather than let that show, there's a reaction formation. So you repackage it so that it's good. And so, our co-author, Doug Calhoun, talks about how he'll just kind of get a tight smile happening. And that's a bit of reaction formation so that you're not being bad and showing anger. How does it show up for you, Wendy? If your inner critic is saying some things to you and anger's building, and you have, maybe your body is telling you in some way, anger showing up, what happens? How do you reform it so nobody knows that you're bad and have anger?
I would say for me, there's definitely a lot going on, in my body and in my mind when the anger comes. And oftentimes, I can see how I would do that, where I try to make my anger righteous, by, like you said, kind of reframing it, like kind of trying to justify the anger per se. And if I can't justify it, then I try to suppress it. But that doesn't work very, very well. And then I blow up. I don't do a very good job of that aspect of it, but I always try to, oftentimes especially with my kids, over the summer, I've been with them 24/7. So, I guess a lot of it shows up in my interactions with them. And, each one of them, gives me kind of a challenge in their own right. I have one of my children who I'm pretty sure is a one, because she's my mini me. And she shows on the outside what's going on with me on the inside. And so that really helps me a lot to kind of see kind of what's going on. But that's really a lot of it, is that, it's, even with her, if she's angry, it's somebody else's fault because, because they're being bad. Whatever it is, they're being bad. She's good. And that's why she's angry, is because, they're being bad. And so she tries to, I guess it's more of a trying to justify her anger, I guess is what I'm seeing. And I kind of see that with me as well. So
I love that you have this little person that can give you a way to see yourself in the raw form. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So a lot of time, everybody has an inner critic, but many times we talk about the ones having, just taken inner criticism to an art form. And would you say that what is the connection to anger with this inner critic?
Well, I would say, for me, yeah, I mean, I have mastered being critical of myself. And with that, I end up getting angry at myself before I get angry with anybody else, because I'm so critical. And so I get frustrated with myself, and I get, angry with myself first and foremost. But then obviously that spills out to, being critical of not even just people, but of situations and circumstances. And the more that I, think about them and how they're not right, they're wrong, in every situation, that's really a lot of times where my anger comes from, is what's not, what's wrong with the world, right? What's wrong with the circumstance? What's wrong with, my children? What's wrong with my husband? What's wrong with me? Type of thing. And that's a lot of times where my anger comes from, right? Is, that's not right, or that's bad,
May I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
You're perfectly critical of yourself. So you're perfect in that sense.
There you
I'm
go.
sorry. I just thought I'd pop in with that. Just
and so Wendy has been really doing great work morally around her self-awareness, and so is able to articulate what this inner critic has bullied her with these, through her years. And I wonder if you don't have to, but what has your inner critic said to you today?
My inner critic, the number one thing that my inner critic tells me on a daily basis is, you're not good enough. With everything, with, a business that I run, with, again, my children, in my marriage, with, family, and, in all aspects, it's, you're not good enough.
And so what's happening in your body as you say that? Where are you even experiencing what you're saying right now?
I always experience it in my stomach. Mm-hmm. I have two things. One is like nauseousness, just kind of a rumbling of nauseousness. And then when times get, really tough, and I have a lot of inner critic going on, or a lot of anger issues, things like that, then I'll get stomach pain. And I actually, even in third grade, I had ulcers.
In third grade,
I carried it. So it's always been in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Always been in the stomach.
And is there a way that you've been practicing harmony with your 4 and 7? Have you found times where you're able to access your EQ and your IQ?
Well, with, for me, I definitely can see that my life, that I'm a lot lighter when I try to surround myself with 7s, or try to do things that I enjoy. So not just working out, but taking a Zumba class, because I love to dance and it's fun. And, and the instructor, I won't type her as a 7, but she's a fun person. And so she just helps me kind of laugh at myself rather than be critical of myself. And so taking, getting into that class once a week helps a lot. And, honestly, just really trying to breathe is a huge thing for me. And with my kids, using my littlest one, she'll tell you she's hilarious. She's not just silly, she's hilarious. And so just really, allowing her to help me just to laugh, So, I guess I've kind of used other people to try to access my 7 of just, the let's just go have fun, and let's not worry about the dirty dishes or, how imperfect the house is or whatever. Let's just go on the swings for a while, or, whatever that may be.
So I have a couple of
How about
questions.
you?
I have a couple of questions. May I?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, do you find that you can relax that inner critic if you go outdoor and spend a lot of time outdoor?
Sometimes, not always.
Okay. All right. I've worked with a couple of ones who find that going outdoor helps them. And I love this narrative tradition that's going on. I'm certified in the narrative tradition, so I appreciate the narratives. And one of the things that I found is that's a theme, is that going outdoor, because there's nothing perfect outdoor. Trees aren't perfect. Nature isn't perfect. It is what it is. So when you're out in nature, you have a sense of it is what it is, and it's enough. Okay. So that's something that I find helps from my experience. And the other thing I want to ask you is, again, now it sounds like you find it hard to pause. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And the pause is so difficult and the breathing, and I think I heard you say you can't stop and breathe. And I've heard that before too, because it goes rapidly forward, and there's an unwillingness to slow down, and because there's no time to waste in making the world perfect.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you were to make a daily practice of just going outdoor and appreciating the imperfectness in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Spend about 10 minutes out in your yard, and maybe your mind will still be racing ahead, but if you're out in the yard, just noticing that nature is what it is, and that you can be what you are.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, Morley, did you have any responses to our 8s or 9?
Okay. Yeah. So being one that identifies with a 6 myself, and I have a wing of 7, so a lot of people see my 7 wing. The being in a 6, when I integrate to 9, I am a relaxed person. I'm not in doubt of myself. Like right now, I'm in my 9 space, I'd say, because I'm kind of very comfortable in what I'm saying right now. I find that when I get into that space, sometimes though, I can find it very difficult to move into action. And so I can see how when Scott was talking about, just staying there and not wanting to do anything about it, and feeling the anger inside and wishing someone would understand what I wanted, and not having to do anything about it myself, that kind of resonates, okay, from that 9 space. And then I'm listening to, first of all, I love this. I'm going to carry this with me, the acronym FLY. First, love yourself. And I've been listening to, I don't know if anyone follows Professor Kristen Neff at University of Texas, Austin, but she's done several TED type talks on self-compassion. And they're really interesting talks, self-compassion. and she's done a lot of research on self-compassion. And it turns out that it's very healing to spend time just being compassionate to yourself.
So I'm going to ask you, Morley,
Yeah.
to just put her name and that in the chat. If you do that, that would be
Okay.
really great. Great resource.
Okay.
As each of you are hearing our folks, and there are things that you're experiencing as being a part of this tribe that you'd like to offer, we really encourage you to put that in the chat. We can take pictures of that and share that widely with our YouTube channel. We want to encourage you to actually participate in the YouTube channel and the Facebook channel, sharing that. I'm going to throw up one more time this, I'm not going to throw up, but I'm going to put up one more time the diagram that is harmony. And when you look at these mantras for each of the types, just wondering if they could offer, a way to access grace, even in letting go of power and control for our gut types, and opening to flow, opening to integration, to wholeness. And I also, this is a really good time to tell you, our book is in the final stages of editing, and so all of the book is about harmony and how to spiritual practices to open up to flow. With the Enneagram Harmony Triads. It's a handbook for harmony and transformation. And you'll see there the 3 triangles superimposed over the Enneagram Harmony. And we're going to offer multiple practices in this book to help people discover harmony and open to flow. Jerry Wagner did our forward, and we're really thrilled with that. One of the things that he said is many times people will ask him, now what do I do with the Enneagram now that I know it? And I know my compulsions, I know my addictions. And he said, I think this is a next step. And so it's 4 of us as spiritual directors and pastors that have written this book and offering ways for people to open to flow. So we'll keep you, informed on that. And I think the last thing I'd like to offer for all of us today is a closing meditation with the welcoming prayer, because everyone has a gut space. Every person on this call, you are connected with either that 8, 9, or 1. And so the welcoming prayer is just a wonderful way to let go of all of those narratives and the core motivations and negative fixations. And so I just invite you to get comfortable wherever you are, and whatever way you want to do that. You can even take your face off the screen if you like, so that you can be present without wondering if anyone's looking at you. And what we know is that when we practice meditation, even as Morley said, pausing and breathing. And if you're a 1, you're probably going to notice how imperfectly you do this meditation. If you're a 2, you're going to want to try to help somebody else do the meditation. If you're a 3, you're going to want to do it quickly and effectively. If you're a 4, you're going to want to make it your own, and you'll massage it. If you're a 5, you'll want to know research to see if you should even be participating in this. If you're a 6, you probably won't close your eyes. If you're a 7, you're probably leaving and going out to a party and saying goodbye. And the 8s, just don't resist and flap your 9 wing and welcome this moment to lower your blood pressure and begin to breathe. Regulating any emotions that may have come up for you or distracting thoughts. Taking a breath in and down. Allowing yourself to be aware of your feet on the floor and how your body is resting in the chair. Noticing if you're holding yourself tightly there's any dis-ease in your body, just breathe into that space and see if you can't lighten it up or create more space around wherever you're feeling tightness or anxiety or dis-ease. Just breathe right there, bringing the nourishment of oxygen and the release of any toxicity or carbon dioxide. And maybe you can just say welcome. Welcome to whatever is in the moment right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. From gut to heart to head, breathing in and breathing out. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I let go of my need, my desire for power and control. Welcome, present moment, welcome. I let go of my need for security and survival, and welcome this present moment. Welcome. I let go of my need for approval and affection, and welcome. Welcome this present moment, all that is. So opening to flow. IQ, EQ, and GQ. The imperfections of this present moment. The grace of people who spoke today, our friends Shelley and Kathleen and Scott and Wendy. We breathe in that grace and we breathe out grace to each other. Till we gather again, friends. And if Erica wants to say goodbye to us and let us know anything before she leaves, we just want to say thanks, Shelley and Kathleen and Scott and Wendy, for being our gut friends.
Yes, thank you so much for your vulnerability and your willingness to share your awareness. It helps us to see you and see ourselves in such beautiful ways. So we love this space. We're looking forward to seeing you September 19th. So third Wednesday of the month, that invite will be coming out, but register for that. Christianity's Conflicted Relationship with the Enneagram. It's going to be an awesome panel. So thank you, Claire. We always are so blessed by your Enneagram wisdom and just your beautiful presence. So have a wonderful day, friends.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bless you.